There are things people will tell you about growing old, that your body will slow down, that your bones will ache in the morning, that you'll forget names, misplace keys, repeat stories you swore you hadn't told. But there's something deeper, something quieter that most people won't talk about. Not because it's rare, but because it's hard to explain unless you've felt it. It's not the loneliness, not exactly, not the pain, though that may be there too. It's the feeling that the world has moved on without you, that somewhere along the way you stopped being central and started becoming scenery. Not because people don't love you, but because life gets loud. And your voice, gentle, thoughtful, slower now, gets drowned beneath the noise. This story is about that feeling. That shift and that quiet heartbreak that creeps in as the years stretch on. But it's also about something else. The strength it takes to keep showing up anyway. To find meaning in the overlooked spaces. To rediscover yourself in the silence they don't see. Before we begin, I want to ask you something. What's the hardest part of growing older that you never expected? If you feel safe, write it in the comments. Not for advice, not for pity. Just to name it, and maybe help someone else feel a little less invisible. Her name is Marjorie, 78 years old, lives in the same house she and her late husband moved into in 1969. A white house with green shutters. The porch creaks. The garden is mostly lavender now, because it's easier on her back. For most of her life, Marjorie was the one people came to. Birthdays, holidays, advice. She had answers. She had casseroles. She had presents. But one afternoon, about a year ago, she was sitting in the kitchen when she realized something had changed. Not all at once. It never is. But gradually, subtly, the world had begun to look past her. Her children stopped asking what she thought. Her grandkids started texting through dinner. The phone rang less. Invitations came only after she reminded them she was still around. That day, she stood in front of the hallway mirror and stared at herself for a long time. Still the same eyes. Still the same lines around her mouth from decades of laughter and worry. But it felt like she'd become invisible. A backdrop. The quiet piano music beneath someone else's scene. She told me, "I always thought the hardest part of aging would be losing the people I love. But it turns out, it's being forgotten by the people who are still here." She didn't cry when she said it. She didn't have to. The weight of that sentence sat in the room like a fog. And I realized then, this is the grief no one prepares you for. Not the loss of life, but the slow erasure from the lives you helped build. There's a grief that isn't in the textbooks. It doesn't have a name or a ceremony or a clear beginning. It's the grief of becoming background, of walking into a room and feeling like furniture, acknowledged but not truly seen, of saying something and watching it land like a leaf on pavement, gentle, unnoticed, and quickly forgotten. It's the moment you realize you've gone from being asked to being updated, from being invited to being informed. People still care. You know that. They hug you at holidays. They send photos. They say, "We should visit more." But something has shifted. you've become part of the past in a world obsessed with what's next. No one tells you how much of aging is about letting go of roles. The mother who held everyone together, the colleague people turned to for solutions, the neighbor with the best garden, the friend who remembered every birthday. And when those roles dissolve, what's left? Just you. Quiet. Present. Still here, but unsure where you now fit in the shape of their lives. You start to wonder, am I still needed? Am I still important? Would they notice if I stopped calling first? And that kind of grief, the invisible kind, it lingers. It settles into the soft hours between meals and medicine, in the pauses where your name isn't spoken, in the stories that no one asks to hear. This isn't about resentment, it's about recognition. Because when you've spent your life showing up, being dependable, being the strong one, being the one others leaned on, fading quietly into the edges feels like betrayal. Not theirs, yours. Like you're betraying the very person you were by not knowing how to be without being needed. There's a moment that comes quietly. No fanfare, no big event. Just a morning, a mirror. And the thought, when did this stop feeling like my life? It's not the wrinkles, not the gray, not the slower steps or the stiffer joints, it's the emptiness in the calendar. The conversations that start with, remember when, and never quite make it to, here's what's next. You begin to notice that the things you used to plan for, the birthdays, the dinners, the trips, are now things you wait to be invited to. You used to be the center. Now you orbit. Still loved, but distant. Still welcome, but not essential. And standing in front of that mirror, you wonder, how did the woman who used to juggle everything become someone waiting by the phone just to feel included? How did the man who fixed everything in the house start questioning what he's even needed for? No one took it from you. That's what makes it so hard. There's no one to blame, just time, just the slow, inevitable shifting of roles. As your children become caretakers, your friends become fewer, and your days become quieter. And the hardest part? It doesn't feel like a tragedy. It feels like erosion, like something gentle but relentless is wearing away the outline of your old self. You're still here. But the you that the world used to see, that version has faded into something even you struggle to recognize. And so you stare at the mirror a little longer. Not out of vanity, but out of longing to feel like yourself again, to feel like the person they used to call first. We're taught that independence is the goal, that one day your kids will grow up, your work will be done, and you'll finally rest. But no one talks about what happens when you're finally not needed the way you once were. At first, it sounds peaceful. No schedules, no one to manage, no one relying on you. But here's the quiet truth. Being needed makes us feel alive. It gives our days shape, our presence meaning, our identity something to hold on to. When those needs go away, when the kids don't call for advice, when your partner is gone, when the house stays too quiet, you begin to ask the question you never thought you would. Do I still matter? It's not about ego. It's about connection. It's about knowing that your words still move someone, that your touch still comforts, that your name still lives in someone else's plans. Marjorie told me once, after her daughter forgot to call on her birthday, it's not the forgetting, it's what it makes you feel, like you've drifted from being central to optional. That word stuck with me. Optional. Because that's what the ache of aging can feel like. Not rejection, not abandonment, just a slow, silent graduation from being necessary to being extra. And it hurts. Not because you want to control their lives, but because you used to be a piece of their foundation. Now you feel like decoration, still there, still loved, but not leaned on, not reached for, not missed in the same aching way you still miss them. And the truth is, it doesn't mean they've stopped caring. They're just busy building what you already built. They don't know what it costs to no longer be the one holding everything up. But you know, and you carry it in the quiet every day. It's not the big moments that wear you down. It's the in-between. The untouched coffee cup left out of habit. The mail that arrives with no one's name, you know. The light that switches off at 7:30 because there's no reason to stay up later. It's the silence after the radio clicks off. The quiet house that once held footsteps and music and doors opening just to say, "Hey." Now it's just you and the clock and your thoughts. The ache of aging doesn't scream. It hums, low and constant. You feel it when you reach for a plate and remember who used to sit at that corner of the table. You hear it in the way the phone doesn't ring, in the way your name sounds when it's only spoken by your own voice. And sometimes, you find yourself talking to the air, not because you're losing your mind, but because your mind remembers what it felt like to be heard. You tell stories to no one. You hum old songs in empty rooms. You straighten cushions that haven't been touched in days, because even the smallest gestures feel like a way to keep something, anything, alive. This isn't depression. It's memory. It's longing. It's what happens when presence fades, but the soul still hopes someone might walk through the door. Even if they don't. Even if they won't. You keep the door unlocked just in case. That's where the ache lives. Not in your back, not in your knees, but in the part of you that still wants to be called for, still wants to be seen, still wants to be chosen, not out of duty, but out of love. Her name was Evelyn. She was 81 the night the realization came. No big event, no holiday, just a quiet Tuesday, mid-January. She'd made soup, enough for two, though she lived alone. She always made enough for two. And after dinner, she sat at her kitchen table, cupping a mug of tea, and whispered, "I miss being part of someone's day." Not because she was forgotten, not because her family didn't care, but because no one needed to know how her day went anymore. No one was waiting for her stories, for her worries, for the little things she used to think didn't matter. But they did, because they were heard. That's what Evelyn realized. The loneliest part of aging isn't the silence itself. It's the absence of witness, of someone who sees you in real time, who asks, "How did you sleep? Did you take your pills? What are you thinking about today?" Being seen doesn't mean being praised. It means being noticed, acknowledged, valued. And the hardest part about growing old is not the body breaking down. It's the slow fading from someone's daily radar. Evelyn said, "Sometimes I feel like a book no one's reading anymore. Still full of chapters, still full of beauty, but closed, stacked on a shelf, gathering dust." And when she said that, I didn't try to fix it. I didn't offer advice. I just reached across the table and said, "I see you, and I still want to know how your story goes." There's a kind of bravery that doesn't look like heroism. It doesn't wear medals. It doesn't march. It doesn't get applause. It looks like waking up and making coffee for just yourself. It looks like combing your hair even though no one's coming to visit. It looks like planting flowers that only you will see. It's showing up in your own life when no one's watching. That's the quiet courage of growing old, of choosing to engage with the day when you know it will be mostly silence, of choosing to prepare meals, tidy rooms, open curtains, not for a guest, but for your own sense that this life is still yours to live. There is dignity in showing up for yourself when the world no longer expects it. There is grace in continuing to care even when care is no longer required. And there is deep, sacred strength in choosing to love your own company when others no longer offer theirs as often as they once did. You still matter, even if your phone is quiet, even if the mailbox is empty, even if no one asks how you're doing today. Your breath still matters. Your thoughts still count. Your memories, your smell, your place in this world, none of it has vanished, even if the world grows forgetful. Because the truth is, you are not invisible. You are simply becoming a quieter kind of powerful. And that is something no one can take away. If no one has said this to you lately, let me say it now. You matter. You are not just a memory of who you used to be. You are still becoming, still growing, still offering a kind of wisdom this world desperately needs. Even if it hasn't learned how to ask for it, you are not behind. You are not in the way. You are not expired. You are not obsolete. You are the keeper of stories no one else remembers, the witness to a time that shaped everything after it. And just because the world is louder now doesn't mean your voice is any less important. There's a reason you're still here, still breathing, still watching the sun rise through the same kitchen window. There is still beauty that only you know how to notice. Still laughter you've earned the right to enjoy. Still mornings that welcome you like a quiet miracle. And if today feels heavy, if your name hasn't been spoken aloud, if no one reached out, if the mirror looked back at you and said nothing at all, I want you to know you're seen, you're loved. You're part of this moment, not because you've done something impressive, but because your presence is already enough. You don't need to be needed to be valuable. You don't need to be called to be real. You are here, and that is holy. So today, breathe deeply. Sit in the light. Write your name softly on the air. And remember, you've already mattered more than you know, and you still do. The hardest thing about growing old isn't the body. It isn't the slowness, the forgetting, or the pain. It's the quiet shift from center to edge, from being seen to being skimmed over. But here's the truth that remains. You are not less. You are more layered, more resilient, more attuned to what matters. And while the world may forget to ask, we won't. Here, in this space, your voice is still welcome. Your story still matters. And your presence is never background. So I want to leave you with this. If there's something you've been carrying, something no one sees, something no one asks about, you can share it here, in the comments. Not to explain, not to impress, just to be heard, to be real. Because sometimes the act of saying it brings a kind of peace you didn't know you were waiting for. And if this video held something for you, if it touched the part of you that still longs to be seen, to be needed, to be remembered, subscribe. We're building a quiet corner here, for truth, for reflection, for the stories that don't shout, but linger. Come sit with us again tomorrow night. You're always welcome here, and we're still listening.